This podcast episode is entitled, If This Podcast Survives, referring to the More Than Blockchain podcast. If this podcast survives 2023, it will be huge in 2024. Now, I know that sounds weird, but there's a couple reasons why. And we're going to get into them on this episode. So for your 51st episode, let's dive into why, if the podcast survives 2023, it will likely be huge in 2024. I'm Jarrett Carpenter, and this is More Than Blockchain. When I started podcasting, I was highly aware that this was going to be a long, iterative process. And I was also super aware that most people that start podcasts don't get past episode 10, never mind episode 20. And so it was always in my mind's eye to make sure that I was creating content weekly or on the somewhat semi-consistent basis. Now, if you listen to episode 50, where I talked about the consistency I've been able to keep up, this is the 37th week that I will have published an episode on Tuesday, which for me is a cool accomplishment because I know in order to build a podcast that people can kind of reliably check in on, I need to tap into something that humans are really, really into. And that is patterns. That is routine. And so if you're listening to this podcast, and maybe you listen to it every week, if you do, thank you so much. You'll know that, hey, it's Tuesday. Maybe there's a new More Than Blockchain episode. So this episode's obviously a QuickPod. We also have longer interview style sessions. But one of the things that I wanted to do when I started the podcast was to stay consistent and build to a minimum of 100 episodes. And then at that point, reflect, see if I want to change things. But in that path, I knew it was going to be difficult. And the reason why I knew it was going to be especially difficult is because on this podcast, we talk about everything that's tied to cryptocurrency or blockchain. Blockchain, really. Obviously, it's called More Than Blockchain. But everything is really tied around the cryptocurrency market. And so with the cryptocurrency market currently down the tubes, currently not doing well, currently just, I could probably find a better analogy, but I don't even know if it's appropriate to say, it's not going well, right? And what we know historically, and when I say historically, cryptocurrency has only been around really since 2009, so we only have about 13 years to look back on. We know that after a bull run, things will cool down. And then there's a zombie year, and then there's going to be an up roller coaster, and then we're going to go to the moon again, or there's going to be another bull run. So if you look at this classically, in 2013, you had a bull run. 2017, you had a bull run. In 2021, you have a bull run. So if you're looking at that pattern, you could probably say, in 4 years, this actually has to do with the amount of block sizes that are in Bitcoin. And when Bitcoin goes up, it drags the whole market up with it. When Bitcoin goes down, it takes the whole market down with it. So there was a Bitcoin bull run in 2013. There was a Bitcoin bull run in 2017. There was a Bitcoin bull run in 2021. And that's right. You guessed it. There's probably going to be a Bitcoin bull run in 2025. If you've heard me say this before, I'm super sorry you have to hear it again. But I want to say this as much as I can, that we're probably going to have another bull run in 2025. So it gives people who see cryptocurrency as an investment asset a chance to make sure they're getting in while things are undervalued. So in between 2013 and 2017, those bull runs, and then in between those bull runs of 2017 and 2021, and we're starting to live in this stretch now between 2021 and 2025, the market is going to go down, just like it is right now. So in 2013, we had a bull run. In 2014, we had a cooling off, I'll call that. In 2015, that's a zombie. It's a whole zombie year where things are going to trade sideways, meaning there isn't going to be a lot of price movement. It's going to be pretty depreciated prices. 2016, I'll call that going up the roller coaster. And then 2017, blast off to the moon, bull run. Just like in 2014, 2018 was a cooling, 2019 was a zombie, 2020, we were up the roller coaster, and 2021 was another bull run. We're currently finishing out 2022, which I'll call the cooling year, and we're getting ready for the zombie year, 2023, where I think prices are going to be really, really down. There's going to be low market sentiment, and because of all that, Who's going to want to listen to little old me on a microphone or any of the wonderful guests that I have on? I'll tell you who's going to listen. People who are really interested to learn about crypto in a down market, which will be very few, as a percent of overall people that have just maybe gotten in or will get in again in 2024 when we go up the roller coaster, in 2025 when we go to the moon. But mainly it's going to be people that are already part of the ecosystem and probably have been even before the 2021 bull run. And so because of that, I already know that 2023 is going to be a very difficult year for this podcast. Even in the last 3 months, while I believe the content has greatly increased and I've had wonderful guests and amazing conversations, I can see in the analytics that listens and listenership has been going down. And while that may get me down sometimes, I have to put it in perspective that I'm building this podcast for the future. And what I mean is, I'm building More Than Blockchain, this podcast, and the overall brand and everything else I'm going to be hopefully creating in 2023 for a world that doesn't exist yet. And that's a world where more and more people are crypto literate, meaning they have an idea of what's going on in the crypto market. They likely own some. And if they don't own some, they're interested to learn more and then interested to invest, maybe buy an NFT, maybe join a DAO, maybe even take a course on blockchain, maybe ask the question, how can blockchain help me professionally or personally? And so before we get into that, we need good sentiment. No one wants to go to a house party where people are just kind of sad and it's kind of depressing. You want to go to a house party where the music is loud, people are having a good time, and everyone has smiles on their faces. And the reality of it is, crypto right now, the fall of FTX, and the overall huge depreciation of the assets and basically the prices being so low, the house party is whack, right? You don't want to go to this house party. If you go to the house party, they're not going to have free beer. They're going to have like some cash-only bar or something. So you're just not going to want to be there. There's not going to be any music. The DJ's not taking requests if there is. And he's playing a set playlist that's just pop songs and you're not really there for that. So that's where crypto is now. And I know, looking historically and knowing what I know about where the market is, the overall macro environment, what's going on globally, the Ukraine crisis, the Ukraine invasion, and what the Fed is going to do with interest rates, which will slow basically the incentive to get money. When I say get money, I mean take on debt. 2023 is going to be a zombie year. And so it's going to be an interesting time for this podcast because I know if this podcast can survive, and I'm saying it will because I already have my plan, then by 2024, as we go back up the roller coaster out of the zombie year and get ready for 2025, which will be another moon launch or bull run, people are going to then in 2024 start to think about the podcast. Start to ask the question, hey, how can I learn about Bitcoin? Hey, what are the cool conversations that are going on around NFTs? Hey, how can NFTs be used in the professional industry that I'm in? And when that happens, then the podcast will explode. And that will happen somewhere in 2024. So what I wanted to do in this episode was just take a moment and say out loud that if this podcast, More Than Blockchain, survives 2023, which I've laid out and I believe to be a zombie year, where just basically people aren't interested to hear about a podcast about nothing. You don't want to hear a podcast about a house party where there's no alcohol, there's no dancing, no one's having fun, everyone looks sad. And I'm not saying you need alcohol to have a good time at a house party, but I think you're getting what I'm putting down. So I wanted to say out loud, if this podcast survives 2023 and the zombie year that it will likely be for crypto, then in 2024, I think it will be huge. Thanks for listening to this episode, and be sure to follow us on social media at More Than Blockchain. And if you haven't done so already, be sure to follow us on YouTube because in 2023, I'm starting a new show that will be, I think, pretty much video only. It won't be on the podcast, with Jose Pichardo-Eve, who was guest of episode number 42. We will have a show called Low Cap Gems. And if you haven't already, please check out our website at morethanblockchain.xyz. No matter where you're listening to the pod, please go ahead and subscribe. And if you enjoyed this episode, feel free to drop the link to a friend via a DM, text, or email. And thanks again for checking out More Than Blockchain. I'll see you next time.